This is a $3,000 box that plays movies, and this is a $150 box that also plays movies. Could that possibly be worth it? Well, I put it to the test, side by side playing the same scenes from 4K Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos movies on my 77-inch G5 OLED, and I tried to pick apart every single difference. I'm going to show you multiple scenes comparing the detail, contrast, and talk about the sound difference between a $3,000 box and the Apple TV. Also, what kind of setup you need to even take advantage of something like this? And if you want to have a large movie library, how expensive these things can actually get. So first of all, what even is this? This is the Kaleidescape Strato E movie player. Now, I first heard about this from Nilay Patel on the Vergecast.
It is the single most incredible experience I've ever had watching a movie in my entire life.
Who Kaleidescape sent him one of their most expensive systems for him to try out in his house. They did not send me this. I bought this from Best Buy. And the selling point is this box actually downloads full quality movies locally to the device for playback that is uninterrupted and unaffected by internet speeds, bandwidth, artifacting, all of that. Now, this is the cheapest model you can get that supports 4K, Dolby Atmos, and Dolby Vision, $3,000, and it has about a 480 gig SSD that will hold about 5 to 6 movies depending on size. Now, there is a cheaper Strato M movie player for $2,000, but it's not 4K. And there is a more expensive version with more storage, and you can even get full-on servers that are either 8 terabytes or up to 120 terabytes for $35,000 to store lots of movies locally and then send them to your Strato players around the house. Now for $3,000, you get the player, and they do include a nice HDMI cable, power, and Ethernet in the box. But what's not in the box is a remote. I'll get into what it's like actually navigating this player because it is very different from an Apple TV, but if you want a dedicated physical remote, it's another $50. I mean, I get that we're in like really high-end home theater gear right now, but maybe throw in the remote for a $3,000 box. And so you know what I'm comparing. This is the latest generation, which is a couple years old, Apple TV 4K. This is the $150 version, and I have this connected to Ethernet, and I have pretty fast internet speeds, as you can see. So the quality I'm comparing from this Apple TV to the Kaleidescape, I think it's the highest you can get on the Apple TV streaming movies. Which that is the promise of these high-end movie players. The Kaleidescape, which downloads the movies compared to streaming, it can provide much more data throughput than even the fastest interconnection in your Apple TV. For instance, according to Flat Panels HD, a bandwidth test on Apple TV, the highest bit rate you can expect, which is the amount of data that's being passed to it, is about 30 megabits per second, maybe peaking out around 40. Now, when you're trying to push 4K Dolby Vision video and 7 channels plus sub of Dolby Atmos audio, that's a lot of data to push through a pipe. That's why if you have a slower internet connection or your Apple TV is on Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet, you could have dropped quality, you get some artifacting, and I'll show you some of the differences in a second. But even with the best connection, that's the maximum data you can expect from this kind of streaming box. As opposed to the Kaleidescape, which actually downloads these movies locally to play back, you could see over 65 megabit per second data passing through for video and audio, and Kaleidescape even says up to 100 megabits per second for peak quality. And because the movie is downloaded locally to this box, your internet is basically out of the equation. Once it's downloaded, which takes about 10 minutes even on my connection, your internet goes out or there's any blips or slowdowns, doesn't affect the playback. Kaleidescape also claims that you'll actually get higher quality from even a 4K Blu-ray disc. Now, when I posted about this on social media, some people just recommended, well, get a 4K high-quality Blu-ray player and physical media, and you get just as good quality, if not better. And I might still consider this $800 player. Some people also recommended ripping a Blu-ray and then using an NVIDIA Shield. Yeah, I'm not going to be doing that. Now, step one of the experience is actually getting movies to watch onto Kaleidescape. And any movie you might have purchased through Apple TV or other services, those don't count. You have to repurchase or rent movies directly from the Kaleidescape library. To give you an example, Interstellar, which I did buy along with Dune and Infinity War, you're looking at about $20 to purchase, $8 to rent. Pretty comparable if you were buying directly from Apple. And when you download it, you can actually see the download size, which I downloaded the 4K Dolby Vision version, and for Interstellar, it's over 100 gigabytes. That's more data that can even fit on most Blu-ray discs. So if we're looking at quality as a data standpoint, you're going to get the most quality or the most data from these downloaded movies, even over a Blu-ray disc. Now, navigating the Kaleidescape with the app, it's fine. It's pretty cumbersome. Honestly, if you were setting up an entire home theater or even home theater room, I would just get the physical remote for ease of use. And remember, you're not getting any of the Apple TV features like AirPlay, screen mirroring, all of that. This is just for watching movies and TV shows. Also, a weird behavior when you're navigating a movie, you can jump to specific scenes, and once that scene is done playing, it'll basically go to a black screen, and you can press play to keep watching the movie from that place. I kind of wish Kaleidescape would just keep playing from the scene I chose. And there's also no scrubbing. You can fast forward by tapping the fast forward button in the app or remote, and then it will kind of jump forward, but it's nothing like the scrubbing experience you get on Apple TV where you can see the little thumbnail picture where you're scrubbing to. So navigating the movie is more cumbersome on Kaleidescape than it is on Apple TV. Again, I think this is really meant to just press play, watch an entire movie all the way through, and then you're done, maybe pause it in the middle, but you're not getting the Kaleidescape for the UI and navigation. That part is pretty rough. But let's talk about quality comparison. Now, I did my best to actually film my TV screen, which is an LG G5 77-inch OLED. I just set that up in my house. I just upgraded to a new Denon receiver, and I have 7 speakers and subwoofer, 2 in-wall, 4 in-ceiling, and I'm playing back Dolby Vision and Dolby Atmos on both systems, Apple TV and Kaleidescape. Now, watching this back on YouTube, you can put this full screen at the highest quality, but I'm still recording a TV screen using one of my Sony mirrorless cameras. I did keep all of the settings, lighting the same to try and get the best A/B comparison. It's still not going to be like actually seeing this in person, but there are some differences you can spot when it comes to video quality. One place streaming boxes can really struggle is when there's a lot of action on scene, a lot of motion, maybe small objects and dust. We're going to talk about these sand scenes in Dune in a moment. But even with Infinity War, with the whole fight on Titan, you can see in some timestamps, there's just more detail. You can look at the sword that Doctor Strange is using right here, and you see more detail on the Kaleidescape side versus the Apple TV. Going into Interstellar, in scenes where there's very dark blacks like in space against a very light planet like during the docking sequence or Gargantuan, sometimes maybe I saw a little bit of banding or artifacting from the Apple TV where I didn't see any of that on the Kaleidescape. And some moments where it's close-ups on the faces or there's like little logos like the NASA logo here, I might see more detail on the Kaleidescape. And I say might because I'll be honest, if you did an A/B test, didn't tell me what box you were using, and in my setup played the same scene, I don't know if I could tell the difference. And I'm just talking about visually right now, video quality, but there is a more stark difference when you watch something like Dune. This is Dune Part 2, when Paul Atreides is about to ride Shai Hulud. And the very small particles of sand, this is like the ultimate test for a streaming box. And this is a clear difference, especially if you go frame by frame. The amount of detail and individual grains of sand you can see from the Kaleidescape box varies greatly from the Apple TV. And watching this live in person, I can tell the difference, especially in these kinds of scenes. There's also overall color reproduction, which feels better coming from the Kaleidescape, but again, very hard to tell when you have an Apple TV and a super fast internet connection versus the Kaleidescape. So visually, you really have to be looking for the differences, or if you actually have an entire movie theater room, maybe with a 120-inch or greater screen, you would probably spot more differences that way. But one area that was a really stark difference was the audio. I don't have the highest end speakers in my ceiling or walls, but immediately upon playing a movie, it is evident the sound difference from the Kaleidescape to the Apple TV. You're dealing with basically uncompressed audio from the Kaleidescape versus the Apple TV trying to push Dolby Atmos, all those channels through the pipe. And the first clear difference is just volume. Playing the same movie at the same volume set on the receiver from the Apple TV going to the Kaleidescape, it is just louder, meaning you just get more volume from the Kaleidescape's uncompressed audio versus playing from the Apple TV. Typically, I'm running my receiver up towards 70 when I'm streaming a movie on Apple TV and I really want that immersive experience, whereas with the Kaleidescape, I can run that 55, 60, and that is plenty of volume. And the overall quality separation of channels, I do hear the difference from the Kaleidescape to the Apple TV. If I was doing an A/B test just based on audio, I think I could tell the difference. All the Hans Zimmer scores, whether it's Interstellar and Dune Part 2, sound amazing coming from the Kaleidescape. And maybe there's also a bit of psychological effect because I know this is a locally downloaded movie playing at a higher bitrate. It feels like it's higher quality, and it definitely is just by the amount of data. I think it looks better, it definitely sounds better, but in most setups, unless you have just really high-end audio and a really big screen, high-quality TV or projector, the differences are gonna be hard to spot. Audio, you'll experience that difference more than the video side. So bottom line, is a $3,000 box worth it? You have to deal with a janky UI and a virtual remote or buy a $50 remote. If you do want to swap movies often, that's removing movies, downloading them, waiting 10 minutes to do it. Obviously much less convenient, plus you don't get the nice experience of being able to see the little thumbnail preview. You have to rebuy movies if you have already purchased them on Apple TV or other services if you want to play them on Kaleidescape. And if you want to go all out, you're talking thousands, if not tens of thousands of dollars. And the other factor is your setup. If you just can't get Ethernet to your Apple TV or you don't have fast bandwidth available in your area, Well, the downloaded movies are going to look way better than really streamed, artifacted movies. And on top of that cost, you're going to need thousands of dollars of setup, a really nice TV and screen, projector or TV, all the speakers and receiver and Dolby Atmos stuff to make that happen. It is a large investment. And I'll be honest, I am super on the fence. I'm considering maybe trying that Panasonic Blu-ray and going the physical media route again. And I used to have a massive DVD collection. I was all about physical media. But there is something to be said about not having to put discs anywhere, and then you can just download at will, buy one immediately, and watch, well, 10 minutes later for the download speeds. So I'm going to be super honest. I've used this thing for the past week, and I just don't really know. I don't know if that's worth it. For me, I already had most of the setup already in place. I had the TV, I had the speakers, I had the receiver, and I like knowing I'm watching the highest quality version of a movie like Dune Part 2, eventually when The Odyssey comes out, and other big movies like the new Avengers. When I watch it at home, I like knowing I'm watching the highest quality version I can, but if I can't really tell the difference side by side, A/B testing this and my Apple TV, I just don't know if that's worth it. Now, I'm not going to be buying those more expensive servers so I can store more movies. I'll just deal with putting movies on and off this. And honestly, for most movies, I'll still probably go back to the Apple TV. If we're renting something as a family and we're just ready to watch something right now, well, Kaleidescape, I'm not going to wait 10, 15 minutes to download something. I'm just going to do it here. Plus, if I'm going to stream something from Netflix, Disney Plus, or something I'm not actually buying and renting, well, Apple TV is the only option then. So it's not like you can have the Kaleidescape and nothing else. You would probably want both of these. And if you have both of these, I mean, Apple TV is still really good. Now, I recently did a video about what I would love to see from a newer generation Apple TV. I know it is a way long shot, like an Apple TV Pro that could download movies like the Kaleidescape, but man, Apple could charge triple the amount for an Apple TV Pro and still be way under the Kaleidescape box. You can watch that video right up here. And in case you forgot, the original Apple TV actually let you download movies. That was the way you would watch them. You downloaded them to the local Apple TV box and played them locally. So do something you already did, just with higher quality stuff. Bring it back. Now, even the more expensive Apple TV is 128 gigabytes, which would be exactly one interstellar movie stored locally on the device. And with SSD prices right now, maybe now is not the time to ask for an Apple TV Pro. But if I could just get a little closer to that Kaleidescape quality on an Apple TV box, then it would be no question. I would just go with this. If you have a dedicated home theater room, which means you probably have the budget for another $3,000 box, you have a massive screen, all the speakers, everything is the highest end possible. Yeah, the Kaleidescape is pretty sweet. My return window is coming up on this, and I'm still not sure what I'm going to do, so maybe I'll pin a comment and let you know what I do in a week from now. But I would love to hear what you think down in the comments. So if you have a Kaleidescape or you're just a physical media person and you're like, Blu-rays are the way to go, you can let me know down there. You can check out my Apple TV video. I'll put that right up here. And some of my smart home upgrades where I talk more about my TV and receiver. I'll put that video right here. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that like button before you go. And if you are on that Apple TV train, I do have a bunch of videos about Apple TV tips. I'll link one of those somewhere. And stay tuned. Dub's coming up, tvOS 27. Maybe we'll see some even more upgrades to the hardware and the voice assistant when that comes. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next time.